back to Tattoo Homewreckers. This is a podcast where we talk about tattoos, life, and everything in between. My name is Callista. We have Lou all the way over there, and two very special guests. If you guys want to introduce yourselves?
I'm Kyle.
I'm Kim.
Kyle and Kim. Kyle and Kim, thank you so much for being on the podcast. We appreciate you.
Glad to be back again.
So much. I know. Welcome back, Kyle. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something super fun. We're going to talk about polyamory. Yes?
Yes.
Yeah.
I don't know why I had to double check. Are we talking about that?
Yes, absolutely.
No? Fabulous. And I kind of wanted to start off with just your guys' like little love story. How'd you guys meet initially?
Oh boy.
Oh yeah. Do you want me to say it?
Yeah, you generally do.
So
It's not a bad thing. It's
it's one of those stories where it's like, oh, it's so cute. It makes you want to throw up.
Oh.
Kim and I knew each other when we were like 6 or 7.
Mm-hmm.
We were what is known as a rink rat.
Yep.
We were at the roller skating rink a lot.
Yep.
And our family was there all the time, and we would chase each other around. She would be on her quads, I would be on my blades, and I was just like, that's the one. And so like as kids we became really good friends.
Yep.
And then when we were like 7 or 8, she was my first kiss.
And
at the race.
What?
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh,
And
young.
yeah. Well, I mean, we were kids. We were being stupid. But it became like the thing of like our parents and her parents. We all just knew like, oh, the little boyfriend, girlfriend.
Yep.
And so that happened. And then middle school, high school came around and we didn't see a lot of each other. Like families went separate ways. We didn't go skating a lot anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And then come high school,
It was
my
2012.
senior.
It was right after you graduated.
Yeah,
it was
right.
no. The
Was it
first time
your
I saw
senior
you in
year?
a while, it was before you went to drum corps.
Yeah. So
I came to your graduation party.
I think it
But
was
you
like-
were with Shani at the time.
yeah, I think it was like 2010, 2011. She was still in high school. I had just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And I was doing indoor percussion, and we had a show at North Valleys, which is where she was at. And I ended up going over to the theater, and they were doing a choir thing. And she walked on stage, and I was like,
It was
oh,
festival.
hey. And like, got back in touch, started talking again. She was working at the roller skating rink. I started going to the rink again just to see her, to hang out.
Yep.
And then a few months later, we were talking and dating and hanging out.
Back
and then we
at
were
the
literally
rink.
back together.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Full circle.
Yep.
Yeah.
But
Oh, that is so freaking sweet. And how long have you guys been together now?
11 years.
11
We
years.
just
and-
passed 11.
Yeah.
Well, congratulations
Yep.
to 11 years. Holy cow.
Yeah.
I'm assuming that you guys started off as like monogamous.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
I wanted to ask you, if it's not too personal, how you guys came to the decision, how you realized that you wanted to be poly.
So Kyle was actually the one that came to me with it.
Yeah.
We are both openly bisexual,
Mhm.
kind of bouncing between. He switches between being pan or bi, either or.
Yeah.
I tested out the idea of claiming pan, but I've been bisexual since middle school, so
For
it's
sure.
like it feels more genuine to me. But like we've both openly acknowledged that with each other, and there was a day that like we have friends that are polyamorous as well, and like we've seen stuff about it and like kind of interacted with like content of it.
Yeah.
But neither of us really said anything. And then there was a night that I came home and he was like, hey, and kind of just like talked about it because he's like, I keep getting these videos.
It was more like an info dump. I literally was just like,
Classic.
hey. bleh.
Yeah. So he brought it up and he was like, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to you as your partner because like I know you're bisexual and you have sexual interest in women. Like obviously I can't provide you with that because I'm a dude. But he's like, I don't want to limit your experiences by staying in a monogamous relationship. He's like, how would you feel about being polyamorous and possibly opening things up? And I was like, well, that's okay with me. Like, unironically, it made me think about like middle school, and I was actually polyamorous in middle school and like beginning of high school
Oh.
because I always had a girlfriend and then I was dating a guy at the same time and thought nothing of it. Like,
Right, because-
Yeah, because
it's
middle
just-
school, everybody's just like, oh, it's whatever.
Well, yeah, and there
Like-
wasn't like a social construct around
Yeah.
it either.
Nothing.
There was no like stigma at that point.
Yeah.
I'm sure because you're a kid and you're just figuring it out.
Yeah.
And, like honestly, like yeah, at that point, no one's like projecting shit onto you either.
Yep.
So so you did have a little bit of a history where you're like, okay, this actually is clicking. This is
Yeah.
starting to like make some sense.
So we started talking about just like what boundaries we would need to set up, how comfortable we would be with certain dynamics, and we both agreed we're not going to do it to where it can only be other partners of the same gender for either of us because we think that would be kind of weird and almost like sexualizing it or fetishizing it in that sense. So
Yeah.
from there, we've just kind of been
Yeah,
playing around with it for the last like 2 years.
when I brought it up to Kim, I was just like, it just like she said, but then the idea of like same sex, I was like, oh yeah, the idea of like, okay, well, you can only date women, but you can't date men and this is where my basic understanding and how I see polyamory is, to look at your partner or any of your partners, if you're in a constellation relationship or if you're in a very open relationship, and say, if you want this specific thing from me as a man, you can only get it from me. I'm the only man in your relationship. That's very controlling. That's very, like, I get there's dom sub relationships. That's a whole nother thing. Like,
right.
Yeah.
It's a separate category,
that's a whole,
Yep.
yeah. But to be like, okay, you can date a multitude of women, but if you need something from a male figure, it has to be me.
It
It
gives
gives,
still gives me the ick.
exactly. It gives, it's the ick saying it. Yeah. And I was just
I
like, that
hate it.
seems weird. And then it's also like the idea of like spreading love and being polyamorous. So the idea of like not putting all that pressure on one person. Like, oh, if you need these things, you can only get them from one partner. Like, we all have different needs in life. Why would you want to put all of that weight onto one person when you already have like your best friend, your mom, your dad, your siblings? Like, that's all still love.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to like what you need in a relationship, whether it's support, whether it's sexual, whether it's literally just, I want someone to go play mini golf with on the weekends and you don't like to play mini golf with because you want to be inside and read your books. Like, this is
Or,
totally
like,
fine. But
disc
like,
golf.
yeah.
And those are weird special interests that like we have because it's the way we've explained it to people in the past too, because they're like, we don't get it. And I was like, okay, let me like hash this out with you. And I was like, we have our relationship, we have our things that we enjoy and that we get out of each other. And I was like, but Kenny being his best friend is a completely different dynamic.
Yep.
I'm not able to meet him on that level. I'm not able to provide him with those social and like relationship needs that his best friend can do for him. So it'd be really weird for me to be like, no, you can't hang out with him anymore. Like, you have to do all that stuff with me when I'm not gonna meet him on that level.
Yeah.
And like we compare it to my best friend who I've known for like 15 or 16 years. Like, she and I have a very special friendship, and like we have that understanding of like, Kyle is like, yeah, I'll never be in her position to be able to give you those things that you need. So like we honor each other's relationships, both like intimately or sexual relationships, also with just like life relationships.
Yeah.
Because like toxic monogamy goes way beyond just a romantic dynamic. Because like we talk about it in friendships all the time.
Oh my God. You always have that one person that like, well, I'm your best friend. And you're like,
And
well,
then
you're
like,
one of
I am
you're
her best
Yeah, but it's like and that's totally fine. Like, that's totally fine. Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
I am her
it,
best friend. Yeah,
it
no,
exists.
I agree.
But
Yeah.
it like, and that's totally fine. But it's when you have that one like toxic friend who's like super like, well,
Possessive.
you can only have one best friend.
You hear that in marriages, and like I think that's the issue for me with like the heteronormative culture of like, okay, your husband is your best friend. I'm like, and like, don't get me wrong, when I was younger, like I absolutely was like, okay, that's how that has to be. And I was like, okay, so my husband is my best friend. And then I'm like, but you don't want to do all the things that I want to do.
Yeah.
And then like our relationship just happened like through its own like thing. Like there was not like, I was like, oh, I'm looking for like the other half of my fucking soul.
Yeah.
But like, she's the only, like, I swore I would never have a business partner because I got screwed over last time. So I was like, I'm never going to do that. I was like, I don't want to fucking like have my life be like enmeshed with someone's. And then it would just, one day we were like, what the fuck, dude? We do all this shit together. And like, I couldn't work with my husband every day. But working with her, it's like, it's so easy because like we can talk about things and have developed such a level of like trust and communication that we can tell each other the most vile shit. And we're like, yeah, there's no like judgment. And it's particularly hard for me because I want that like with everyone because I have it with her. So I'm like, I want that everywhere. And she's just like, that's not realistic.
Unfortunately.
And I'm like, that's ridiculous.
Because I can relate to that quite a bit because like I put so much of myself into relationships, like whether it's like romantic or not, like I 100% throw myself full out into things. So like I feel the same way. I'm like, why can't it be like this with more people? And it's just
and there's just people that you're just like, okay, that's it. Like this feels easy because we put in the work, but also because there is just that part of it that's just easier.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that's the whole point of like having different relationships, I think. And we often get mistaken as like a
actual partners.
Trio. Yeah, and like, well, actual partners, but it's funny because we only get mistaken as like a trio if I'm with her and I'm not with Caboose.
Yeah.
It's like very much like is at the center point.
Yeah.
But I think that's part of the like toxic heteronormative culture where it's like, oh,
And
but you guys are so close that you have to be romantically intertwined somehow.
Which is
and it still exists in the
so
poly
odd.
community too.
Yeah,
like
it does.
that,
Doesn't
like
it? Do tell.
Yep.
Do tell. I would love to
Because
hear
there's
that.
definitely still people look at whether you're bisexual, whether you're pansexual. There's still that idea of like male female primary partners looking for a third. Like that is so it's that heteronormative like like you almost rarely hear of like two females looking for a third, whether it be male or female, or two males looking for a third, whether it be male or female. Almost like I'm just going to throw a number out there just from what I've seen between our friends and all the groups that we have. I would say at least 80% of the poly couples or people in poly relationships is male and female primary partner with either other male and female primary partners or they're what some call unicorn hunting, or there's just a third. But the main dynamic is heteronormative, male, female.
Yeah.
So it still exists even in the poly community of people like, oh, well, man, woman, extra, or man, woman, and man, woman.
For sure.
So it's still very much ingrained in poly because a lot of people look at it as like, oh, well, they had each other first and then someone else. And it's like, we have that at the same time, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. But
it's what it presents as on the outside.
Yeah.
That's like, that's just how our dynamic started, but that's not like some of the terms that are commonly used is some people prefer primary partner being like what he and I are to each other. We do life together. We're married. We live in the same house. We pay bills together. We have finances together. Like that's what kind of makes it like the primary partner. But it can kind of sound weird because it makes it feel like if you have any other partners outside of that, they're secondary, like they're subcategory when they're not. Because it's not a secondary category at all. It's everyone's on the same playing field. So the term that we've come across that we use is anchor partner. Because like that's where you're anchored. That's where the foundation started. But everything else from there is still adding on to that and building from there. It's not a subsection or a secondary section. It's just an addition to where you're at now.
I like the term of like adding on to things because I do agree where like there is, like you said, that weird power dynamic of like, oh, so you have your primary and your secondary isn't supposed to be subhuman. We're all supposed to be on the same equal playing field. How is it navigating being in a polyamorous relationship at first? You said something about like discussing boundaries and stuff like that. I'm assuming communication is key.
Yeah,
like,
very much so.
Do you have any advice for people who are, considering polyamory or people who are just starting out?
I had a feeling.
I was gonna say.
I would say best advice, and this is one that I've heard, and it's one that I try to think of more often than not, especially when it comes to polyamory is the basic idea of that love is an inexhaustible resource. So if you're giving one person love and you're giving another person love, it's not, oh, I'm giving you 60, I'm giving you 40. It's you're getting love however you're getting it. And so the best dynamic that I've heard is we always think of like two halves of the same whole. It's always this like pie chart of love of what people think. So like it's can be percentaged. And the best way to look at it that I have found is you have to think of it like a garden. Your garden can grow, your garden can get smaller. You can have a bunch of radishes and a couple of beets, or you can have a whole bunch of beets and carrots and a whole bunch of things. So like, and whatever you put, onions.
I love
onions. I love onions.
So like,
I think I love all vegetables. Can you literally said that? I'm sorry. Yes, let's go.
All
the vegetables.
I just like that the first thing that came to mind was radishes and beets. I was thinking about flowers.
Oh,
but that's
fair. So it's like
I was on the same wavelength of like flowers.
I went like veggies. But it's that idea of like whatever you put interest and time into, like that's what's going to cultivate and grow in your garden. But it's like some weeks you don't need to tend to the potatoes. They're doing their own thing. And so you can look at other things in the garden, and that's how polyamory is. Like,
for sure.
If you tend to everything at once, that's great. But just because you're not tending to your tomatoes that week doesn't mean you don't love your tomatoes. Like your tomatoes are still going to be there next week. Like you have to put time and effort into the things that need them. So like if you have something wilting in your garden, like you need to address that. So like if you have a friendship that's dying and you want to keep that friendship, go address that friendship. And all the other fruits and vegetables and flowers in your garden aren't going to get jealous. They're just going to be like, oh, like, yeah.
Fuck you, radish!
Exactly.
Yeah,
But
I love that analogy. I was laughing. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing because both Callie and I have been so busy that like both of us have like plants that mine are hidden behind a garden right now that are just dying.
That are
and
struggling.
I was like, dude, I'm just ready to put these fucking plants on the side of the road and just post stuff and be like, somebody take all my fucking plants. I don't have the time and energy to do this.
and,
don't tell
and
our
sometimes it's sometimes it's the same way in a relationship. You've had a friend for like 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
And the friendship dies, and you're just like, look, I'm done putting energy into this.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I've taken care of this relationship for 6 or 7 years, and it's dying. It's dead.
Yeah.
And you have to take that friendship and go, look, man, someone else can have you. Like, I don't want to take care of this monstera of a friendship anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to take things out of your garden and replace it with new, or you can leave the bay empty. Like,
that being said, do you, because like Callie and I both do this, where we tend to like have friendship breakups with people because both of us live on the like clarity is kindness.
Yeah.
And then it tends to be like, no matter how nicely you're like, hi, this isn't working. Like we like going in different directions. Like your life is there, my life is here. Like this isn't really working.
Mm-hmm.
It tends to be quite vile afterwards
Oh,
where
yeah.
I'm like, wait, why do you hate me? Like we just grew apart. And like, I didn't know if that was a thing for like you as well, where it's like if you were like, oh no, I'm great with that. Like that's wonderful. And like,
No.
yeah.
I feel like
No,
friendships,
you have a good point of view
have,
on this.
Like, I feel like in friendships, so many people that I meet that are like, we've been friends for like 30 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, but you don't fucking like each other.
Yeah.
Like,
Dude, their
and
marriage
they
is
just
like
don't,
that.
and they just never like have a conversation around it.
Yeah.
So you said you have something on that?
Kind of, sort of. It's funny that you bring that up specifically, and like it segues into a situation that we're in right now ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Ironically enough. So Kyle currently doesn't have any other partners, but I have branched out to be part of a polycool, because there's the 3 main that are in their dynamic together, and then all of them kind of have branches off from there.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the 3 I have a relationship with, we've been dating since probably about October, so it's only been about 6 months or so.
Mm-hmm.
And at first, like, communication was super consistent. Like, it was every day. We were hanging out at least, like, a couple times a month. And it seemed to be going really, really well. Like, I still genuinely care for this person, like, quite a bit. I love their whole dynamic because I'm friends with all 3 of them.
Yeah.
Like, I work with one of them specifically, and then through time, I've met the rest of their triad. But, like, he and I just recently, within the last couple of months, things have kind of tapered off. Like, life has happened. They went through a big move recently that we helped them with. And they've got their own life stuff going on. So, like, I'm trying to be respectful of that because I'm like, you guys live together. You guys have to solidify everything that you're going through right now. So I'm trying to give everybody space and time to do that. But at the same time, like, our communication is just slowly starting to die.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it used to be we would text literally all day long, like, obnoxiously so. And then it filtered back a little bit when, like, the new relationship energy started to, like, wear off a little. But it was still consistent enough throughout the day to where it went beyond the, like, small talk.
Yeah.
Like, the pleasantries of, like, oh, how's your day? Like, oh, it's weird. Like, stuff like that. But recently it's tapered off to, we quite literally say hi to each other in the morning, like, when he gets up, because he works a weird shift. So he's generally up around, like, 1 or 2 in the afternoon. And we'll only exchange maybe 5 or 6 text messages in a day. And it's generally like, how'd you sleep? Okay. How's work? It's awful. And then, like, that's it.
Yeah.
So I'm at that point where I'm sitting with the idea of, is it time to cut this loose? Because, like, my feelings haven't changed, especially for, like, them directly or, like, their triad in general. Like, I adore all 3 of them.
Yeah.
But I find myself putting so much energy into something that I don't feel reciprocated.
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily like I'm angry with them for that. Like, again, I understand they're going through so much stuff within their household. So, like, I'm holding space for all 3 of them. But it's like, where do I draw the line for myself? Like, I'm exhausting part of my mental and emotional resources trying to figure out this dynamic, and it just feels like we're not getting anywhere.
Yeah.
So, like, I have to make that decision of, like, do I want to cut this off? Do I want to be done? And I texted him the other day, and I was like, hey, I think I want to call it off. Like, I think I'm at that point where I'm just like, we need to step away from this. And he was like, whatever you do is fine.
Yeah. I just had to back up and be like, whatever your decision is, I will support it. Like, my position and my thoughts and feelings on it, it's an outsider. Like, their relationship is their relationship.
Yeah.
What they have between each other is between them. If Kim wants my opinion, I will gladly give it to her based on what I've seen, how I feel between the two of them. But it's not from a place of like, oh yeah, call it off so that way I can have you more.
Yeah.
And that's what a lot of people think it is.
Yeah,
so
totally.
it's not like I'm not going to be out there like every time she has a bad relationship or she thinks that it's time to call things off. I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, 100% call it off so that way I can have more time with you. It's when she asked me about it and I was like, well, I want you to do whatever makes you feel happier in your heart and your mind. So that way you have clarity. I don't want you doing this because you feel pressured to do it so that way I can have more time with you. I want you to do it so that way you can have more time to do whatever it is you want to do. If you want more time to be with me, if you want more time to be with your books, if you want more time to
I like that the only
whatever
time
it
you
is.
sound slightly jealous.
It's the book.
It's the books.
Okay.
That's the one thing. But, like, another relationship, you're very much like, yeah.
Whatever.
The tone is
Your
the same.
books.
And then
Yeah.
the way
The
that
books.
your body language changes when you're like, the books.
Okay.
I can't compete with the books.
I can't compete with the book. Have you read
I'm
some of these
sorry.
smutty books that are out there these
Dude,
days?
I can't get into them.
Porn.
I
It's in
fucking
now.
hate
Yeah,
them.
I'm
Very porn.
They're-
I love it.
I can-
10 out of 10.
I can read the first book of a series and then I'm like, that's great. I want more. And then I'll read the first chapter of the second book and I'm like, I'm done. And then
my God.
meanwhile, she's read the whole thing.
One of my
So like,
buddies
I
does the
genuinely
audio.
mean it. Like her relationship with books, like she has her fictional
I
boyfriends.
love it.
And
That's amazing.
I love it for
I
her.
can't-
Like
I can't help
that
it.
is, and that is a big part of her mental health. Like that's her escape from reality. Mine is
Your-
video games. Hers is her books.
Mine
Like,
is currently
Read.
Connect.
like,
That's
oh,
all
I know.
I've
I
been
see it.
doing.
Dude, when I
All
was a
I've been
teenager,
doing.
I literally was.
There's
I-
a Disneyland Connect
Yeah.
that that's all I'm obsessed with. That's
Connect
my
is the
current,
reason
like-
we got an Xbox in our house.
and
when I
I'm
was
the
a kid.
reason it's not set up because
She hates
it's
it. It creeps
weird.
her out.
Oh, I fucking
That's
love
okay.
it. It's
I mean, at least yours is in the garage. Ours would have been in our bedroom,
I
and
don't
that would have been
like
really
it.
weird.
Oh no! You just put a little veil over it. You just.
Well,
cover
Oh, it's
it up.
listening.
to be fair,
That's
also
everything
his
will
older
say.
Xbox,
Yeah.
the one that he had before originally, was semi-sentient. I swear, it would turn
It would
itself
just turn
on
itself on.
for no reason,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
the Kinect would also turn on. I'm like, can we not do
Wasn't
that?
that like Paranormal Activity?
Probably.
One
Yeah.
of those. They read a ghost using the Kinect at one point.
Oh,
I thought
yeah.
it was so funny. I thought it was
What?
the
We need
funniest
to
movie.
watch that.
It was so
I
fucking
love
funny.
that.
Because I was like, this is like they don't. I'm pretty sure they know that this is a timestamp to where we are as human beings.
Mhm.
So to record a ghost using the Kinect is lit. Like,
Yes.
it's so funny.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
I
but-
love that.
Yeah, Kim has a whole different relationship with her books, and like I
Yeah.
get it. It's just like me. My hobby is bowling.
Sorry.
Like I do bowling a lot.
You
That's
do.
a whole thing. And the people that I know through bowling is a whole nother thing. So
We've
yeah,
also found a fun correlation there that men who bowl have wives who read smut.
Whoa.
Yep.
We have
Like-
not been wrong yet. We
Yeah.
have proven it with 6 of us.
Nice.
All of the guys that I bowl
True.
with, I'm like, does your wife read smut? And they're
Yep.
like, yeah. And I'm like, yeah, it's a thing.
Wow, I love it. You guys birds of a feather flock together.
Yes.
That
Yep.
was amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think clarity is kindness.
Yep.
That is hard. I'm sorry you're going through that
Yeah.
though. And the fizzle out method works out for some people.
And that's kind of how I handle friendship breakups is
Yeah.
I just
Like, you're
create
cool with the fizzle
space.
out?
Yeah.
Mhm.
I create space with some people and I'm just like I still love you. I still hold space for you in like my life and I like keep an eye on people to a certain extent.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, like I get to the point where I'm just so like tapped out mentally that I'm just like I can't even muster the ability to like say anything.
Totally.
So that's
Yes.
probably something I need to figure out on my own. But
It gets
like,
even harder to tell people like, hey, I'm done. Like,
Yeah.
because then you feel like the bad guy. You're like, I don't want to put more into this. So like,
Yeah.
it's a rough thing.
Yeah. I mean, you have to assess whether or not you really do want radishes in your garden. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Sometimes it's
But it
hard
really
out.
like that analogy for anybody looking at polyamory or thinking about polyamory. The garden analogy is what I would say start with. Think of your relationship as you have a greenhouse and you're trying to cultivate something.
Yeah.
Like, do you want just a bunch of roses? Like, if that's what you want, great, have that. Like, there's
Love that.
nothing
10
wrong
out
with
of 10.
monogamy.
Yeah.
But if you want more in your life, you don't have to think of it as I'm giving 40% of my time here, 30% of my time here, 20% of my time here. Like, no matter where you spend your time, as long as you're giving love to the things in your garden, you're giving it. And you're cultivating a better relationship. You're cultivating these things. And so, like, in our relationship, the idea of, I keep saying idea, but it really is just like the fact of the matter. When Kim has another relationship, like, she's putting love into that. It doesn't mean she's taking love away from me. I still feel her love. I still have her in my life. We still have each other, but she's cultivating another part of her own needs, what she wants. And she's a woman with free will. She can do whatever she wants.
Yeah.
And, like, I've told her that all the time. Like, when she's come to me with, like, certain decisions, she's like, what do you think about me doing this? There have been days where I'm just like, I don't give a fuck. You can do whatever the hell you want. Like, you are your own person.
Yes.
But she's coming to me and asking me that because she's like, I want to know your feelings. I want to know your opinions because I want to respect the boundaries that we have.
Yeah.
She's not asking it as like I need your permission, which a lot of people think that's what it is. Like, she never needs my permission. She just wants to know how I feel about it, where I am emotionally, where I am, like, in my own headspace around the idea of her either pursuing something new, whether it be hobby or person. And that's where the respect lies in, because it's not a matter of like, no, don't do that because I need you more in my life. It is, I want you to be happy when you're in my life and when you're a part of my life. And if this is going to make you a happier, more rounded, full person, do it. Because that means that when you're with me, you're happier. You're not holding it against me of like, hey, I'm not getting these things from you, so I'm going to try to beat these things out of you. Instead, she goes, hey, I'm not getting these wants and needs fulfilled from our relationship. I'm going to seek them elsewhere.
And that goes back
and
to
it doesn't
not
hurt
asking
me.
one person to do everything for you, which is just a mind-boggling concept to me. Like, how can you expect one person to fulfill every single need that you have?
Well, I think
that's a disservice to you because you're not acknowledging, like, you have different facets to yourself. There's so many pieces to yourself, but it's a disservice to them because that's a lot of pressure.
Oh, for sure.
Like, that's so much fucking pressure.
Well,
and
I
I'm
think
just
it's
like,
just fear-based though. It really comes down to the fact of like, okay, well, if I can't provide this for you and you're going to get it elsewhere, then it's a fear of like, and it's a fear around like the time. Like for me, like the idea of like polyamory completely makes sense because like, and it's why people assume that like we are together is because like I love her in a way that like cannot be like quantified. Like, it cannot, like, I would die for her. I would give up everything. And it can't be quantifiable because I feel the same way about my husband. But for people to be like, no, that doesn't make any sense. And it's like, but it's not like, I am only here, like, the way that, like, I like to put it, that I heard that I thought was beautiful was that, like, when we love people, we're just there to bear witness to their lives. And so, like, the same thing, like, she makes choices and, like, one day we won't live together. One day she will probably get married. And we will, you know, not, like, spend as much time together. But that means right now I appreciate it. And also, like, whatever the fuck that looks like is what that looks like. But it's never designed to be like, hey, it's a control thing of like, I don't want you to date this person. I don't want you to talk to this person. I want you to be friends with that person because it takes away from me. It's like, no, like when she's in love, it's one of my favorite forms of her because she like expands with it. And
I can see you getting a little water out of it. I love it.
And like the same thing with like when she makes like new friends, like the one of like the privileges that I have like working with her is that like I get to see the dynamic of her like play with other people and it brings out like different facets. But I think like I love that idea of a garden because I'm like, bitch, I can't tend to my fucking greenhouse. Like I'm that person that will like pull back from relationships and it's not out of like, hey, I'm done with this. It's because I'm just like, no, I go into these like really stressful times because we work a ton. And then like I just completely withdraw and then everyone's like, hey, what about me? And I'm like, fucking leave me alone.
You're like, I just need some time.
Can die.
You're like, I need time.
I feel like Inception you guys with this and now you guys are just you guys are gonna get mad at work one day and you're like, fuck these radishes, all right?
But that's what happens is that for me, I'm like, I need plants that hibernate so I can be like, no, I have to just the greenhouse greenhouse is fucking locked
I need
right
some
now.
friends that are more like succulents and snake
Yes.
plants. I need you to thrive off of neglect.
Exactly. Yeah, that's 100%.
Because I love you no less, but I can't always be there.
And sometimes it's not even you. Sometimes you have to ask another partner or somebody else in the polycule or in the constellation to tend to another relationship. Because there's times where you're like, look, I love you, but I can't have a conversation with you right now. Can you please talk to XYZ about it? Because I need to be removed from this situation. I still want you in my garden, but I just don't want to have to be the one to take care of you right now.
Yeah.
So you can ask friends and family. It's just like house sitting or dog sitting when you're like, hey, can you come watch my dog for a week? Like, can you come cultivate my garden for a week? I can't put the energy into it that's needed right now, but I still want to keep this alive. So you have to be able to work within the friendships, within the polycules, within the constellations. Like that's what Kim's doing right now. Like the polycule that she is a constellation out of. Like she's leaving space for all of them because like they have their own garden. Like everybody's got their garden, but we can all help each other in the garden. Like so you have to have that mindset of am I helping cultivate my own garden? Am I being asked to help someone else keep theirs alive? Like where do I want to put my energy? Where do I want to put my time this week? And I think you guys touched on it best in the episode that you guys recorded recently about canceling things with your parents and just like being off. And you brought up fog and it's fear, obligation, and guilt. And ever since I listened to that episode, I'm like, man, it is true. Like it's those relationships and those friendships where you can go 2 years without talking to that person, then you come back together and it's like no time has gone by. You catch up, you get back to like, oh, what has gone on in your life? But you're not resentful. There's no fear about like, oh my God, it's going to be weird talking to them again. There's no obligation of like, I need to stay in touch with this person every day. And you don't feel guilty that you haven't spoken to them in 2 years. So it's the same way in polyamory, like that fog of like, okay, well, am I going to feel guilty about not giving this person time? Or am I going to feel obligated to only give these people time? Or like, is there fear and anxiety based around what this relationship, whether it's a friendship, romantic, or any other form of relationship, like, are you afraid of what it is and how it's going to affect the rest of them? Because you really have to put yourself first on where you're going to be, and then think about where it is and everything else.
Absolutely.
So.
Well, I mean, what do they say? Boundaries are the space in which I can love you and love myself at the same time. And I mean, in all healthy relationships, like, again, you don't want to have it be based off of fear, obligation, or guilt. Which I'm sure can be like, I don't know if it's any trickier. I feel like what people have a problem with polyamory is they struggle with the idea of the fact that they have love scarcity issues. Scarcity?
Scarcity?
Cool.
Scarcity is, you're right.
Scarcity. Love scarcity issues.
Just add a little spice.
little bit of seasoning there. So love scarcity, I feel like, is what makes people tend to stray away or like even just judge polyamory. And love scarcity, and what else was I gonna say? I had something else that was really good that I noticed. The flexibility of it all. The idea that you can be so fluid with having a garden of different assortments. Because I feel like what people would really, really struggle with is, A, we have society telling us you have to be in a monogamous relationship. That's already fucking hard.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. B, the poly community, I would say, is very much aligned with the queer community.
Oh, absolutely.
1,000%.
Yeah, exactly.
The crossover is very, very strong.
The crossover is so strong. It's hilarious seeing like straight people on Tinder use anything but the word polyamorous. Ethical non-monogamy. Like, that is so straight. But
very, very straight coded. Ethical non-monogamy. Let me just stretch it out as best I can.
You can't say much because that's where we started, Kyle.
It is.
I think that's what's funny about it is that like it is that like, okay, so this is where like we start with this concept of like, okay, we must sterilize it, and then you're like, wait what? Because like as you're describing like your like what polyamory is to you and like giving me a deeper understanding, I'm like, I mean, we're like the way that we explain to people, I'm like, we're just a non-sexual like polyamorous pod in that sense where I'm like, because like with our other two best friends, like we for sure do that where I'm like, I can't have this conversation right now. I'm not in a place for this.
Yeah.
Can you
can you tag in for me?
And then like we all do that where like right now, because I am in a like shell where I'm just like, I don't have the energy to talk to other human beings.
Yeah.
I am very much outsourcing that to her where I'm like, please tend that friendship. I'll come back in. I'm just dying.
I need time. Like I need space for myself.
Yeah. And she's really good about that of like carrying me through those times where I'm like, all my friendships would just die off that I'm like, I fucking can't. And it's like, it's interesting hearing that because it is very just, to me, it's very queer coded in that sense of like, no, you can love your friends.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, we have the same dynamics. We just don't sleep with each other. And it's not to imply that all poly relationships also sleep with each other. And I think that's a big like misconception there is that like you're like, for me talking to clients about it, it's oftentimes where it's like, well, they just want to sleep with everyone. I'm like, so what if they fucking do anyway?
So the argument I have with that is it's the same, like, I hope I don't offend anybody with this, but if you are offended, that's on you.
Yeah.
It's the same argument of people that are just like, oh, well, you're atheist or you're satanic. Like, you just go around raping and murdering as much as you want. And I'm like, yeah I do. It's none. Zero.
Yeah.
So it's the same way in poly. Like, oh, you're just going around and sleeping with as many people as you want. And I'm like, yeah.
Exactly.
Only the people that I want. It's not everybody.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not predatory. Like, and they say that in the way to make it predatory. Like,
absolutely.
Because again,
they want to it's easier. And you brought this up in the episode that we talked about where it's easier to be angry than it is to grieve. And it's easier to people to vilify polyamory than it is to go, than it is to literally self-grieve and go, oh, wow. I'm just a sad person. Yeah. It's easier to just
or
be
make
angry
space for it and and stretch their boundaries. Like people, it's fear-based. Like a lot of misunderstandings with stuff like that is all fear-based because they don't have access to information or they don't have someone in their life or something that they can go to get more information. Like people are, when you're afraid of something, like your natural reaction is to run away from it. And if it pursues you or you feel like it's confronting you, you lash out because you feel like you're cornered. Yeah. So like, I feel it's very similar with like them making comments about like, oh, you just want to sleep with everybody. Being bisexual and having been out as long as I have been, because I'm 32 this August and I came out in 7th grade. I'm not going to do the math because I'm bad at math.
20 years.
Yeah, but
I grade you're 12.
I knew I was bisexual by the time I was in 2nd grade. But like being bisexual in straight settings and queer settings, everyone's like, "Oh, you just want to sleep with everybody."
Yeah, totally.
Like there's so much discrimination there. So like I see it on both sides of like our unusual or out of the norm dynamics with both of us being bisexual and polyamorous.
I have to deal with it all the time. Like my best friend Kenny. Like there are days, and people know this, and we joke about it. And there was a time where it hurt me that we were joking about it, and then now I've gotten over it. Where people will be like, "Dude, you put Kenny before your wife," and I'm like, "Well, I've known him longer than my wife, and I respect his opinion." So no, I haven't known him longer.
You've known me longer than Kenny.
I've known her longer, but like me and
they've been closer longer.
Yeah.
Again,
I would say
that's where that dynamic comes in separately.
Like,
and people would get so offended on my behalf, and then be like, "Kim, is that true?" I'm like, "Yeah." 1,000%.
Kenny's opinion would be worth more.
My favorite story with this, Kenny wasn't even in the state of Nevada. He was somewhere across the country working.
He was in Texas. He was in a class.
Yeah, and we were at the grocery store of all places. And at Smith's, they have like the Hot Wheels next to the cash counters. Like, and he used to collect Hot Wheels as a kid, so he still has a few. And he found a red Ford Lightning, just like the one in Fast and the Furious. And he's like, I have to get it. And I was like, Kyle, I was like, you don't need a Hot Wheel. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, we don't need to do this.
So I took a picture of it and sent it to Kenny and was like, do I need this?
And he was like, yeah, you need it. So I lost the argument. And I was like, thanks, guys.
Kenny knows his emotional needs in that moment.
Yeah.
Where you're thinking practically.
She's like, we need groceries. And Kenny's like, nah, he needs that little Hot Wheels truck.
That's the one.
Yeah.
Put the Pop-Tarts back, you save money, and you buy the $1
but like,
Hot Wheel.
Yeah.
With that, sense. With like the me and Kenny relationship, and this is like with your guys' relationship, all of our friends and a lot of our friends know that I'm bisexual. And Kenny knows it, his wife knows it, and people like...
His wife is also bisexual.
Whenever it gets brought up in conversation, and like, because Kenny's a blue-collar dude, like all the guys he works with probably make the most inappropriate statements every day of their life. And like, they find out, and they're like, wait, so Kyle's gay? like, has he ever hit on you? And Kenny's like, no. Like, we don't have that kind of, like, the amount of times that Kenny has had to explain to, like, me and our guy friends that we hang out with, the amount of times he's had to explain that, I'm like, dude, like, and then I have to look at these other guys and be like, trust me, he is not my type.
Yeah,
like, he's my best friend, and I love him to death, and, like, we have that, and I would save his life in any way I could if I had the chance, and he'd do the same. But there is no sexual interest there. But everybody always assumes. They're like, so wait, like when you guys are at the bar, like, has Kyle ever tried to hit on you? I'm like, dude, I wouldn't hit on him if I was hammered. Like, I love him. Yeah. And I'll say it. Like, we'll be at the bar and we'll just be like, dude, I love you, dude. Like, and people are like, that's a little weird. And I'm like, no, it's not. Why wouldn't you want to tell your friends that you love them?
Healthy male love. Healthy male platonic love. And we struggle with that a lot too. Again, we love each other, but no part of us is attracted to one another.
No.
And we've talked about how, because we have this like beautiful relationship where we're able to share everything, I'm like, it would be easier if I was attracted to you and we could just be like, cool. Then we can just be a couple and society would be like, great, wonderful. I'm like, but that isn't how it is. And like, and it sucks like for her as well, because like when she starts dating people, she has to go through that whole explanation.
Yes, it's always been a thing.
I can't imagine that. That's actually something I'd love to hear from you about. Of just like what, because I wanted to ask you last time, like, what is dating like for you? Because I know that you guys have your relationship, and obviously like Caboose is your husband, but like when you present it to a potential partner, like, I'm sure people get weird. Like even people that are in poly relationships are still going to be like, tell me more.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I started seeing someone, and we've been seeing each other for like a month now, and we had to go through that where I was like, okay, like when I say that like I have a chosen family, these people mean the world to me. Because it's Lou and Caboose, right? And then there's also Cole and Rachel. Those are my people. And I used to carry this burden of like, oh, well, I come with a package deal. I come with 4 other people, you know? And it put like a lot of like pressure and stress on me that was honestly like, I was just putting it on myself. And I realized like through dating him, there is a lot of like projection happening. I cared about my 4 people's opinions so much that like it would prevent me from dating people because I was taking into other people's opinions before my own. And this dating thing is an individualized experience. Lou's been so supportive about it, telling me like it's just the same thing as dieting. Like, I don't give a fuck about what you eat. Obviously, eat healthy. Don't kill yourself. But
take care of yourself.
Take care of yourself. But like at the end of the day, I'm not gonna yuck your yum. But
to be fair, I will yuck your yum about food way more than I ever would about a partner.
That's true.
That's fair though.
Every time you guys eat mayonnaise, I'm like, oh god.
Yeah, girl, what are you
but
doing?
if you're like, hey, this is not like this person's like, I don't know, a fucking Republican, I would be like, well, I don't enjoy that part, but okay.
But all right. I mean,
as long as you're happy, like, I think that's actually when you say that, like, that's that part of like probably polyamory that people can't understand is like, no, you don't come with extra people.
No,
it's that like
that's
you
a
have
choice.
to do you. And then these people are there to like bear witness to you and like love you through it.
And like upon dating like straight men, you know, there is a lot of like things that I do have to.
She doesn't mean that as an insult. I just
sorry.
The last like 3 guys she's dated, one of them.
not 3. 2 out of 3.
One of them was aggressively just like straight cis man. I was like, a white man? No. Like, that was the vibe. I was like, a straight man?
No.
And so I mean, dating straight men, it is funny because I shouldn't say it's funny, but it is an experience of like, I need to tell you about queer relationships. I need to tell you about queer friendships. Queer friendships are so, and I'm not trying to diss on any kind of like heterosexual friendships, but with queer friendships, I've found they are so deep. That well of love goes so deep. And again, we constantly get confused as like being together. And same with my other friends. We constantly get confused of like, well, this person's in love with you. You're in love with them, blah, 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 blah.
Why is that a bad thing?
We have love for each other. But again, it operates on love scarcity. Right? A potential partner wants to see me. Okay, so are you a part of a poly thing? Or like, how are you doing this? And like trying to explain the fluidity of that is a whole thing. And it's up to them to like make the effort to understand. it's not up to me to justify anything.
No.
And that's the most refreshing part about the like dude that I'm seeing right now is like he's making an effort. And he is very big on like, no, it's my responsibility to do the work to understand.
Yeah.
It's not yours to constantly like justify anything. You have your life and I respect that, and you have your people. If anyone tries to take that away from you, you need to walk.
Absolutely.
Which I think also, but I think it goes the other way, because like we had to have that conversation with Caboose where he was like, well, I get scared she's going to get hurt. And I was like, that's not yours to carry.
Yeah.
I was like, and when you, and like something she had said recently, because we've been talking a lot about it as she started dating, and like as like a group, we've all like had to kind of like address like the dynamics, and there's like more conversations to be had around the fact that like for me it's very much because I see love as like an infinite thing, and because like I'm not here to ever control her. Yeah. So like I'm really big on like, I don't want to meet your spouse until you want me to meet your spouse. Like I'll pick on her a little bit and be like, what am I gonna meet? But then I'm like, but to be clear,
this isn't pressure. This is me being funny.
Yeah, like,
and if it's ever not funny, tell me.
Yeah, and I'm really big on that because I'm like, I am really big on people, like, especially with her and I, because our lives are so intertwined, is having private parts of our lives that like
are just for you.
Yeah, and I'm really big on that, even like within my marriage, and having to explain to Caboose where it's like, but I think that a lot of people mistake love as a as protection. And not as just like being there on the ground with them when they fall. Yeah. Like when you inevitably get hurt, whether that's because like the person you love hurts you, because like we've talked about it, like we inevitably break each other's hearts because like we will bump into wounds that we didn't know existed. Yeah. And it's our job to like be there and to support each other through those things. It's not our job to protect us from ever being
experiencing it.
From experiencing that pain. And that's been like, I think that's another like kind of misunderstanding when it comes to that idea of infinite love, is that we tend to think of love as a truly like a bubble around. So it's okay, well, I never want you to get hurt. And it's like, but being hurt is a beautiful part of being a human being. Like that's how you expand your understanding.
It's also part of a relationship. Always. It's like honestly, like one of the key components is like, how do we deal in times of like hurting each other or stressing each other out or like being mad at each other? How do we deal with those as a couple, as a partner, or as a polyamorous like trio or whatever it is? Yeah. You know, how can we all deal with it moving forward, and how can we grow from it? And that just like deepens the connection. You know what I mean? If anything, if you're avoiding getting hurt, then that's where the problem lies. Yeah, so like even now in my friend group, like we are starting to understand the dynamic of like what it looks like for when I'm dating. Because in our friend group, Caboose and Lou are married. Yeah. Cole and Rachel are married. Yeah. I haven't had the opportunity to find a partner. I haven't had the opportunity to get married because I have had all the stress around it. You know, so I don't know, that's part of the queer relationship thing, is like the fluidity of it all. And I think that's where hopefully this episode will help you guys out. Understand that your life doesn't have to be so rigid.
No.
You know?
I mean,
and there's no timeline either, because like I know you're a bit younger, because podcasts. Yep. So like they're all in different stages of their lives because they've had a little bit more time to find those things.
Cole has had a lot of time.
So like you guys are just you're in different stages of your life and in different stages of experiencing life. So like, and that's the other thing that I hate is like societal's timeline for like, oh, you should be married with kids and this and this and this by this age. And I'm like, y'all are nuts. Had I been married at 22? Oh no. Man.
The guy she would have been married to would have been a nightmare.
It would have been you.
I don't know.
We've been together for 11 years, Kyle. That's more than 10.
True.
The one before you would have been
13
terrified.
13 years.
13 years.
But it would have been you then.
It would have been me then. Yeah, which still would have been a nightmare.
Yeah. Because Ruth and I talk about that.
One of the things about marriage, like I know you just posted about it on Instagram. When it comes to marriage, me and Kim have this idea together that we've talked about, we've hashed out, and we like, I'm going to speak on her behalf. We 1,000% agree on getting married to someone has less to do with love than it has to do with just a legal understanding of like, if I'm in a coma, she gets to make the decision. Yeah. If there's a financial obligation, she can help me make that decision legally without having to jump through holes. Everybody always has this stigma on marriage of like, oh, you want to get married to them because you love them and it's because you love each other. And it's like, yeah, that plays a part of it. Like, I want to choose this person to be financially responsible with me. I want to choose this person to be able to make medical decisions for me because I love them. But being married doesn't change the way I love her.
Yep.
Being married doesn't make me love her more. Not being married
less.
doesn't make me love her less. Like, legitimately, and this might sound a little like harsh to everybody, we got married because I didn't have a job at the time and I needed insurance. It doesn't mean we got married because we didn't love each other. Like, we absolutely love each other. But, like, marriage isn't this idea, like, oh, you have to get married because, like, once you love someone long enough, then you get engaged. And then once you love them for another period of time, then you get married. It's like, marriage isn't on a timeline. Being engaged isn't on a timeline. Yeah. And it's less to do with love than it is it's literally just making a promise. And that's the way we see it, as like, and there's so many different ways to view marriage, and it's totally understandable. And some people are like, well, we got married because we were head over heels in love with each other. Great. Like, cool. If that's the reason why you got married, hold on to that. Keep that in your hearts. Make that a core part of your relationship. That's amazing. Like, if that's how you view marriage, hold on to that and cherish that. But there are other reasons that other people get married, so you don't need to force your idea of marriage onto everybody else. There's so many things in society that are like that.
Yeah, I think there is, though, that societal expectation. Like, we've talked about it because, like, you know, our love runs so deep that, like, if I could marry her, I would marry her just to be like, fuck off. Leave us alone. Like, don't undermine the, like, love that we share and the relationship that we share.
Because you can't grasp
because you put, I think as a society, we always put romantic love as, like, the top, and then being married now.
It's borderline the only type of love that they accept. If it's not romantically or, like, sexually.
Familial love.
Yeah.
Familial love.
Beyond those two realms, like, it's just, like,
their
brain melts. Like,
and I think that's, like, part of it is it's that, like, societal expectation of, like, okay, well, you get married because also there is a validity that happens to you as a person when you get married because of the way that society views marriage as, like, the ultimate form of love. So then when you are in a polyamorous relationship or you are in queer, like, friendships and queer relationships where it's like, yes, I have love outside of this, like, idea of marriage that, like, questions and puts into question what you think is the ultimate form of love, when I'm like, yes, but, like, if I'm, like, you know, on my fucking deathbed, you guarantee, like, or if it's, like, a medical decision, or at this point, like, if it's a financial decision, we are more financially intertwined because we have a business together than my husband and I are. Like, the only joint thing my husband and I have is our mortgage. Yeah. Whereas, like, everything else is completely separate.
The only thing Kyle and I have to that extent is we have a car payment together. All of our other finances are completely separate.
Yeah. And then her and I, it's completely intertwined because, like, we have a business together. So, like, for me, it was, like, very validating when we became business partners, because then I can be like, oh, this is my business partner. And people are like, oh, okay, so they're important. And I'm like, I hate that
they've been important this whole time.
Yeah. Like, this whole time. This is the person that I turn to that, like, when shit goes wrong, it's the first person that I'm like,
that was her even before we started dating.
Yeah.
Like, we both ended up working at the rink because she was there, and I was like, I want to be around her more. So I applied for a job and got a job. I'm not kidding. Okay. The even better part of this is before we started dating, we had a coworker, and the way Kim was like,
so mad about
Kim was like, I don't know how to get him to realize I'm interested, and the coworker told Kim, seduce him with sex, and it worked. And we still laugh about it because it was said. It
wasn't even
I was literally right around the corner when she told her. Yeah. And I, like, popped my head in to check in on them, and they both thought I had heard it.
Yep, so we just
And I was just like, what are you guys laughing about? Because they were losing their minds. And then, like, a week later, we had finally, like, hooked up, and we told her, and she was like, oh my God, so it worked.
Yes. So once we started dating, she was like, I was right. And I was like, thanks. Thanks.
Yeah, that was adorable. That was how we first started, like, okay, we're going to be in a relationship now. I really like one of the stories that I wanted to share on the podcast with you guys. I know we're getting up there in time.
You're good.
One of the things that, like, me and Kim look back on and we realize that we've been poly-coded. Like, she realized it looking back all the way to middle school.
Yep.
I realized it looking back to high school. And then we realized it within our own relationship. There was one of those guys that ended up presenting himself in Kim's life. And she came to me. she's gonna be gruntled about this and disgruntled and all sorts of things. She came to me and was like, "Hey, there's this guy that I see on a daily basis.
I worked with him. He was a coworker.
Very, very familiar. Something about him seems like almost deja vu. Like, and I want to pursue it. I want to know more about these feelings." And at the time, we weren't poly, and I was like, "All right, well, if you're gonna pursue another man, we are not in a relationship." And that was the idea of like, in my brain, I was thinking, if she's going after someone else, then I am less than. And I wasn't less than. She still cared enough to tell me. She wanted me to be aware of her interests and feelings in someone else. She wasn't trying to hide it from me. She wasn't trying to cheat on me. She wasn't trying to keep it behind my back. She was genuinely straightforward. She came home one day from work and was just like, "I'm really interested in this guy. And I want to know what these feelings are." And I was like, "Well, pursue it. We're not together. I don't want to be viewed as a weak person by society. I don't want people to be like, oh, your girlfriend's chasing after some other man and you're okay with that." Yeah, I was okay with it. But to be honest, because of the outside view of it, I had to say, well, I shouldn't be okay with it, so we're not going to be together.
And we didn't have any polyamorous
We didn't have any poly friends
at that point. Like,
none.
It wasn't.
So there was no,
thing.
like, how I was feeling, I had to adjust it to how society thought I should feel. So Kim pursued this guy, and they had their thing, they had their fling, and the entire time, she was telling me how she felt about him. She was being open, upfront, and honest with me. And she would tell me then what I'm going to be home late because I'm going over to his house or whatever. Me and him tried to be friends at one point, and the sexual tension in the room when the three of us were around each other was awkward because I was like, I can feel it, and y'all want to get spicy. I'll leave. But it was like, and it wasn't like there was never a point in me where it was like, oh, I need to step up and be more of a man, so Kim's more interested in me. Like, I genuinely wanted to see Kim's interest in this guy because I was like, it's like you, when you see her in love, it makes you feel good. The way she looked at him made me feel good because I'm like, she's allowed to feel this way about other people. So me and him didn't end up being friends. They did their thing. And at the end of it, me and Kim, I ended up dating someone else. Me and her kind of fooled around a little bit. And then me and Kim came back together, and my best friend and our other friends around were like, dude, she stepped out on you. Like, we even, like, I moved across the country. She ended up, we didn't live together. We moved out. Like, we full on broke it off. My sister freaked out when she came over to help me pack and, like, start moving stuff because we were so calm. Like, we were so cordial with each other and just, like, casually, like, talked about it. Like, she was like, this is weird. Like, I don't know what to do. She's like, you guys aren't, like, yelling at each other. There's no drama. We still had love for each other.
I don't know how to handle this.
Like, genuinely, I wanted to see Kim be happy. And if that meant me not being in the picture, I wanted her to be happy. And it didn't mean that I had to be less happy because she wasn't in my life. Like, I genuinely found joy in her pursuing someone else, and I ended up pursuing someone else as well. And, like, we had a thing, and it clicked, and it worked, and then it didn't. But the whole time, even when I moved across the country, we were still talking to each other. And then when we eventually ended up back together, like, we still say that we've been together for 11 years. Like, there was a pause in there for probably like 2 months, maybe.
It was about a month.
It was about 6 weeks.
I came to you and was like, hey, like, I don't like this. Like, so, I realized pretty quickly that I was like, no, I didn't want our relationship to end. I just needed, like, something. Needed to be, like, something had to change. And it took us being like, we need a break from each other. Like you said, sometimes your life just goes in different directions and you end up in different spaces, even though you've been around each other for so long. We had been together for about 4 years at that point. Like, we were right on the cusp of 5 years. And, like, it just got to a point where somehow we still ended up on different pages. Which is fine. Like, it happens. Like, he had been through some stuff, had some severe things happen. And it put us on different trajectories at the time. And, like, it worked out, but it took me about 3 or 4 weeks. And then right before he moved, I was like, I don't like this. And I was like, I messed up.
I already made the decision to move across the country by then.
And I was like, still go.
I had a house, everything lined up. I had it all figured out.
And I was like, go. And I was like, we'll figure it out. Like, I don't care if it's long distance. I was like, but I want you in my life. Like, I want you as a partner. So we made it work long distance for 4 months, 5 months almost.
But the judgment, when we finally got back together, a lot of people were like, oh my God, well, she stepped out on you. You guys weren't together. You guys weren't a thing. Like, she was with somebody else, and a lot of people
cheating on him.
And I was just like, what you guys don't understand is the whole time Kim came to me with honesty. She gave me clarity. She gave me content. She was upfront and honest about her feelings for somebody else, her feelings of what she wanted and needed that I wasn't providing, and that she was going to in a way, outsource it because she deserved it. She deserved to be happy. She deserved to find that. And I wasn't providing. Mm-hmm. And so all of my friends, and I genuinely mean all of my friends, were like, dude, that's not okay. So like when they have like weird things in their relationships, I'm like, yo, your girl's cheating on you. I'm like, well, you don't have room to talk. Look at Kim. And I was like, Kim never cheated on me.
Do they still use that against me?
Well,
that's cool.
I was like, Kim never cheated on me. She was honest.
Love that for them.
She was clear. She was straightforward. Like, she never cheated on me. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, no, like, genuinely, she never cheated on me.
Yeah.
And when we called it off, it was mutual. Like, we both realized, like, she needed something that I wasn't providing. And then years later, we ended up bringing up the poly discussion, and we brought up this guy.
Yep.
And we were like, holy crap.
Yeah.
Could you imagine how much better we would have been if we had understood poly and if we were already in, like, this open mindset of being in a poly relationship when he came along?
It would have been.
It wouldn't have been weird
situation.
for me. I wouldn't have been like, oh, well, we can't be in a relationship. I would have been like, go for it. And I would have been in the corner doing this the whole time. Like, and I think the rest of our friends, if I could have explained to them what poly was and that we were in a poly relationship, they wouldn't have been weird about it. But because none of us knew what it was back then, and I had no way of explaining my feelings of like, yeah, it's totally okay that Kim's going after somebody that I can't. He wants to give it to her. I can't. Like, but I had no way of explaining that to my friends years ago. And if I had been able to, I think things would have been so much easier. So to be where we are now in our relationship and actually be able to talk to my friends about like what poly is and how it affects our dynamic and like even the polycule that Kim's been a part of, our friends are way less judgy.
Yeah.
So like 100% of the thing is we just need to talk about it more.
Yeah.
Because the friends that we have around that we've talked to about it, get it. Yeah. Like, I don't think it's hard for people to understand. I just think a lot of people don't want to put in the effort. But if they're genuinely friends and you talk about it more, they're like, oh, yeah, that actually makes more sense now. Yep. And it's really clicked with a lot of the people in our lives. And they're just like, okay, poly's a thing, but like, we wouldn't do it. And I'm like, that's great.
That's cool.
Like, you don't have to do it. It's just like queerness. Like, you can accept that queer is around you. You don't have to be queer. Like, be an ally.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's the same way with poly. Like, a lot of people look at poly and they're like, oh, well, you're just trying to make everybody poly. So that way everybody's just going around and everybody has this. And it's like, no, I don't want everybody to be poly. I genuinely don't. I just want everybody to understand that, like, love is this thing that we can all have in so many different forms and relationships. And whatever classification you want to put on it, monogamous, married, open, swingers, whatever you want. If that's the title in your relationship, hold it true to your heart, be honest about it, and cherish it.
I love that. Yeah. Well fucking said. Well spoken and well said. Holy shit, dude. Yeah, speaking of society, I mean, you've already touched on this. People's judgment and stuff. How do you guys now, like, upon feeling the judgment, and I'm sure the hurt from people that you've known.
Yeah.
How are you guys dealing with it now? Do you have any advice for people who, again, are in new poly relationships dealing with the same things, of that judgment, of that, like, stigma?
I'll let you go to that because you've had two actually open relationships.
Oh.
And I really haven't.
But I haven't also, the only judgment I got was for the first one, and everyone was like, why that one? And I was like, because he makes me laugh and I hate it. He was
literally a shorter version of me. Like, no joke.
And the current one's any different, Kyle. I have a soft spot for fluffy-haired gamer boys that make me laugh and I hate it.
Yep.
I'm not allowed to be around them. I don't know. Like, it's kind of like how with him bringing up, because I didn't know this, that people still bring that up and still hold it against me. Like, for me, I'm in a place with myself of, cool, good for you. That has no impact on me. Like, your feelings are your feelings.
Work, yes.
Like, I feel bad for you to a certain extent because I'm sorry that you're not out of your own hurt and out of your own trauma and out of your own experiences enough to be able to just let people be. Like, you can do what you're going to do. That's fine. Like, if that's where you're at, that's where you're at. Like, I try really hard not to take other people's emotions in as my own because they're not mine. It's not my responsibility. Yes. Like, am I going to shove things in people's faces? No, not at all. If, like, they're very clear with, like, I'm uncomfortable with the conversation, I'm uncomfortable with, like, whatever, cool, I can edit it. It doesn't have to be a conversation. Like, you don't, again, privacy. Like, there's certain elements that if you don't want to be exposed to it, you don't have to be. Yeah. And that's, like, one of our boundaries, actually, that we've had to work through in a very weird way is smell. So with like the first guy that I was seeing, he works in security, so he gets kind of weird with like my name being on any of my clothing because I work for a company where we have a uniform and all of my clothing has my name on it. So he would meet up with us at the lanes after I got off work and my sweatshirt would have my name on it and he hated it because it's like, it's a safety thing.
Right.
So I was like, okay, like I always laughed him off and was like, it wasn't a big deal. But there was one night he was like really adamant about it. I was like, would it make you feel better if I didn't have this sweatshirt on? And he's like, yeah, I have one of mine in my truck. Like, I will go grab it for you. So, and at this point, Kyle had been bowling, was in his space. Like, we hadn't said hi. I hadn't hugged him yet, nothing. So I went out to the truck. We got his sweatshirt. I put it on. And the first thing I did, like the first time he hugged me or smelled me that day, I smelled like him.
Yeah,
it
it was
freaked
weird.
him out.
It freaked me out so much because like we've been together for so long, and like when I hug her, I'm like and she didn't smell like Kim, and I was like, this is, and I immediately recognized it not just as like, oh, she's covered in dirt, grime. I was like, she smells like us, or she smells like him. Yeah. So I was just like, oh yeah, like,
and that's where we found that boundary of like, I'm cool with you having a dynamic regardless of how far it goes, as long as it's safe and healthy, but trying to mitigate the sense of smell. Like that's the element of privacy where it's like, I don't want you to smell like somebody else because it overwhelms me. Like it's too much for me to process. I need you to be more like yourself when you're around me. So we learned the hard way with that one of like, that's the part that kind of has to stay.
Yeah. You can set up as many boundaries as you want, but there are some that are going to come out of left field that you are not. Like, there's no way that I knew that was going to be a thing.
We just went through the same thing where we like, and it's horrible when we fight. Like, it is one of the worst things ever because it's always, fights are never planned, but it was the same thing where it's like we didn't know that trigger existed until we were in that situation.
Yep. You flipped it and you were like...
And then at that point, you're trying to manage your own emotions and feelings and go, am I being rational? Am I being irrational? Am I under-responding or over-responding? And at the same time, the other person is doing the same thing. And you're just like, we can't have a conversation right now because both of us are...
Too reactive.
And like our emotions are irregular.
Yeah.
Well,
and it's so hard.
I'll go inwards and then also not speak just as a form of like punishing myself to be like, you're not worthy of having a conversation with her. So then she reached out and was like, I feel like us not talking is like self-harm. And I was like, it is. It 100%. I will never be the person that fucking, maybe one day, it's like something I still work on, but I'm like, I won't be the person that brings that up because I will sit in the place of like, you don't deserve this. So how shitty you feel being in your own shit is it. And then she like reaches out and I'm like, it is, I'm sorry. And she's like, no, it's fine. Like, but I feel like we're just harming like ourselves
and each other.
And like, and like, that's why it's like the worst because like she's the person that I talk to about like everything. So then anytime there's conflict between us, my entire world falls apart and I'm like, I can't regulate. I can't do anything. Cause I'm like, I just need, and like we were apart, like distance wise. Cause if we would have been in person, then it's really easy. Cause then we just go, we're going on a walk and we will talk for 4 hours and then like, and we'll talk about all of it. But like, we had that where, and it was a wound that Caboose had that then like triggered stuff in me as well. Yeah. And so then, then it like rippled out and all of us were just like, oh, we didn't know that was there. A wound. We didn't know that existed. And that's totally like, I think that's a normal part of relationships, but it is about that like giving space. And then I think more importantly, it's about the curiosity of understanding it from like your own self, but also the people around you being curious. And I think that's that biggest part that people don't understand in like relationships. It's like, that's how you provide safety. Is it like, I knew the triggers it was going to hit for her. She knew the triggers it was going to hit for me. So when we were trying to talk, both of us are like, fuck, I know exactly because we know each other in those ways so well that she was like, I knew that like this, and this fear got hit. And I was like, it did. Yep.
I love that you said
just
safety.
Did that last Sunday.
It brought back that like what you said earlier about like the love keeping someone safe and you have to distance yourself between like the safety of the conversation and like the love for that person. Like they're two different things. You can't just wrap them all into one. So like I love that you just said safety and I'm like, because it really is what it is. Like you want to keep that person safe, but at the same time it's like you need to go fall off the bike without training wheels like and get hurt,
learn.
but I still love you, but
I'll be there to help, but like I can't prevent it from happening.
Totally.
And
Again, that's how you respond
crazy.
to things. That's what creates a healthy relationship. Is like, okay, so we didn't know this trigger existed. How can we move
How do we
together
navigate?
As
Yeah.
Mhm.
And it comes up to like your question way earlier of like, if you're curious about polyamory and not sure where to start, you have to kind of dig backwards in yourself of like, okay, what am I not getting? What needs aren't being met? What interests do I have that this person isn't quite able to meet me on?
Mhm.
And figure out how to get there without it being just
harmful or hurtful to the already established partner.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But it's like, and you have to be comfortable with discomfort because like working through triggers and working through trauma together is not fun. It's uncomfortable and it sucks. Like it can get really, really volatile at times. Like when he had his first dynamic outside of me, I made it really clear from the beginning. I was like, I really don't want to be involved because this girl is a trigger to me anyways. Like we've been around her for a really long period of time. Like we skated with her. So that's ironic that everything comes back to the fucking skating rink.
No, it really does. It's kind of wild.
But like they had always had
rats,
like,
that's why they call us rink rats.
They had always had like a unique relationship and like had been really close with each other, which was cool. Have fun. I don't care. Like does not hurt me whatsoever. But he flushed out a full conversation with me, set boundaries with me, like full 9. We went through the whole thing together. And then they kind of filtered on and off because she's very sporadic. She's very like, she's hard to pin. You can't peg this girl at all. She's so flighty. It's weird. But there was a night that they hadn't talked in a while and she called him. And he almost ignored the phone call because we were at home doing something together. And I was like, answer it. Something's not right. Like something in my brain was like, you need
She'll
to answer.
text first before she calls.
And I was like, she's calling you. Pick up your phone. Like, I don't know what it was in my head, but I was like, she needs something and it's important. And I was like, answer your phone. She's in tears. Having a really bad night. A friend of hers had recently just passed. It was the night before the memorial service, so she was going through a lot of emotional turmoil, and she's like, I really just don't want to be alone, and my roommate just went on a date, and like, I don't know what to do. And he was like, and he looked at me, and I was like, let's go. Like, and this is the first time I put myself in the dynamic, like, to be around her, because I was like, she needs support. Like, I feel bad, because like, she's going through it. Like, I don't want to just like put her on the wayside. And there was a point where we used to be really close. So I was like, let's go. Like, let's go check on her, because I know how self-destructive she gets, whether it's whatever her choice to do is. So we show up and she doesn't even hug him first. She hugs me. She ran straight at me and hugged me first and was like, I didn't think you would come. Like, I'm really happy to see you. Like, it's really cool that you're here. Like, I appreciate it. And then she hugged him. So she's manic dyeing her hair, which was terrifying because she had bleach on her head currently. And I was like, woman, you need to calm down. But like, she washes the bleach out and she's trying to get like the color in her hair, and she's struggling because she made the decision to drink at the same time, which throws in the self-destruction. Yep. So I was like, sit down. I will put the color in your hair. That way you don't make this giant mess and it's even, and you are not upset about your hair tomorrow when you're dealing with grief. Like, so we were just talking, like catching up because we hadn't been around each other in a while. Kyle was sitting in her bedroom, like up against her bed, just on his phone, just hanging out, like heard the whole conversation. And she brought up one of the times that they had hung out. And for some reason, I trauma blocked the whole thing. Because he told me everything that happened that day they hung out. I knew every detail of it. But for some reason, my brain was like, that's going to go in a box and it's going to go away from you and you're going to forget about it entirely.
I'm gonna, if you let me, I'll interject here.
Yes.
One thing about
Please do.
About polyamory is everybody thinks that if you're polyamorous, you don't have jealousy.
You do.
And that is the
you absolutely do.
So many people are like, oh, so you just don't get jealous? Oh, no, you still get jealous. You just have to figure out how to work through that.
Yep.
A lot more often than you do in a monogamous relationship. Because we experienced it on a magnitude that neither of us were ready for that night.
It was bad.
She had brought up some of the things that me and her had done together.
And she didn't just straight out say them either. She hinted at them, and I was like, what do you mean? Yeah. And she was like, oh, well, he told me he told you. And I was like, I don't remember having a conversation. Like, what are you talking about? Which triggered her because she's had partners in the past that have lied to her and said that they like told their other partner and they hadn't. So like inadvertently, not knowing a wound was there,
Yeah.
I sucker punched the hell out of it. So she immediately dysregulated. And then Kyle came in and was like, I told you. And I was like, no, you didn't. And I started getting mad at him because I trauma blocked and was like, and it just escalated from there. Eventually, like, they both were like, this is what happened. And I was like, I don't remember that conversation at all. Like, we clearly didn't have it. And like, I freaked out. She started freaking out because she was like, you told me that you told her. Like, I told you that you had to commute.
Dude, it was wild. Dude, I'm going through it again because
so
it's like
bad.
literally that whole day. I literally was like, did I tell her?
Night.
And like the whole next week, I was like, am I gaslighting Kim right now?
Yep.
Did I actually not tell her about this?
Because it does happen where he'll tell Kenny things and not tell me.
So I was,
and he's like, I swear I told you.
Again.
And I'm like,
I was
you didn't.
panicked because I was like, did I not tell her this?
Yeah.
And like, I genuinely, like, I took it on myself. I was like, I'm probably gaslighting Kim right now. I probably didn't tell her. Like, we did have the conversation about the boundaries and like, we hashed that out and I didn't cross any of the boundaries when me and her were hanging out. So none of the boundaries got crossed. So like there was no guilt or shame there. But then I was like, did I actually talk to Kim about it? Like, hey, these things actually did happen. And I was sitting there, I'm like, maybe I didn't. And so for like a solid week, I was like, I'm gaslighting Kim so bad right now. And that's on me. And then like a week later, Kim came to me and she goes, no, you did tell me. And we were here when you told me. And
I remember the entire conversation, where we were at, what day it was, everything.
Your brain said, I'll take that box off the shelf.
And we'll unpack it now.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, so I did tell you these things, but like
and
the
I
jealousy
felt horrible
and
after
the anger
fact.
and everything it was still there. And,
well, those feelings, I mean, well, absolutely. Like when your body's dysregulated like that.
Oh, yeah.
All executive functioning
is gone. 100%. I cried for like 4 hours that night while we like hashed it out and tried to figure it out. But like it took me a solid week for whatever it was for me to backtrack of like, why was the reaction so volatile? Why did I respond the way that I did? What hit what? Like where did I go wrong? Like what internally do I need to figure out? Like where's the thread? Where does it start? So I just started backtracking. And as I backtracked is when I was like, nope, you had that conversation. You were at Prost when you had that conversation. It was a Tuesday before bowling, and it was before everybody met you guys there. Like, you had this conversation. And then I had to step up for myself or for him and just be like, hey, I'm wrong. Like, I fucked up. Like, this is exactly what happened, and apologized.
And so many people think that because we're poly, that situations like that would never happen.
It does.
That it would just be like, oh, like, something would be said or done and be like, oh, we're poly, it's okay, it doesn't matter. And it's like, no, it still matters.
Of like, oh, it's just permission to cheat on your partner.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Oh, God, like, that one.
Yeah, the stigma of everyone's like, oh, it's just permission to cheat on your partner. No, it's not.
You still have to respect the boundaries. Yeah. You still have to establish boundaries. You still have to talk about what this relationship is going to be, where you want it to go, where it's headed. And yeah, just back to that garden of like, where in the garden do you sit? How much time cultivation do you need? Are you there because eventually we're gonna need tomatoes, or are you there because we like having flowers in the corner? Like you have to establish that with every partner in every relationship. And veggies so many people I love that. We're over here veggies and they were both like flowers.
Yeah. You can have your like flowers. Flowers are great. We need them. But I'll have my veggies.
I think it comes down to like choose your hard. If monogamy is hard.
It is.
Polyamory is
relationships are hard.
Being a human being is fucking hard.
It sucks.
Yes. Choose your hard and choose what works for you, whether it be radishes or flowers.
Okay. So on that note, we like to ask each other what's our gender.
We're going to do that one first. All right.
We'll do the gender.
I almost started the podcast with that. I wanted to ask you guys that.
So what does your gender feel like today?
Are we starting with me?
Yes.
I'm genuinely going to go with just a man, like and not even like a man, just a dude. Because just a dude. Because like dude can be non-gendered, but at the same time, like you think dude, you think hat, t-shirt, like very bad farmer's tan. Oh my god!
It's bad, dude. I've been staring at it.
I didn't realize the camera would pick it up that bad.
Fun fact about about me? I hate farmer's tan. So Caboose gets yelled at all the time, and I've just been over here.
I am so.
Yes. And
It's
Caboose
even the
swears-
V.
Yeah,
Oh
I know.
man,
I
it's so.
noticed that too.
Showing it to the camera. This is so funny. My
If you're
gender
just
feels like a farmer's
listening to
tan.
that,
Yeah, I'm.
you might
Yeah,
have
no.
to get
I mowed the lawn yesterday, so yeah, I'm just gonna go with my gender feels like dude, like
Yeah.
like
Feels like
very
dude,
much
dude
the
with a farmer
man
tan.
side dude.
Yeah, dude, being
Yeah.
a guy
Perfect.
being a dude.
Yeah.
Kim, what is yours?
I've never had anyone ask that question before, honestly. So that's a fun one.
Yeah, what do you feel like today?
A
Besides
menace
human
to
being.
society.
I
Your
love that.
gender feels like a menace to society. That's
Yes.
one of the best
Yeah.
answers.
We're gonna
we've
roll
gotten.
with that.
Yeah.
I think my gender today feels like cotton candy on a hot summer day, so it's a little bit sticky, a little bit uncomfortable, but we like how she looks.
I love that.
She's
Have you ever
lovely.
taken hot cotton candy and put it in Sprite?
No.
It wasn't
change
even
the flavor of
Sprite.
your soda.
Really?
I'm sorry. I
It's
thought
not
you were.
Sprite?
No,
There was a time I took
story.
orange cotton candy and put it in orange soda to make it more orange.
Amplify the
And then
orange.
proceed to climb a light pole.
Yeah,
Oh,
there's a whole
nice.
story behind that. But yeah, like
Thanks,
if you
love that.
take
It's
hot
another day.
cotton candy and put it in Sprite, you can change the flavor of your Sprite.
Oh,
It's just sugar.
Just a little tip for
Yeah.
you.
There you
Cotton
go.
candy lovers. What does your gender feel like today?
I feel like a rock flying through the air.
Oh,
Yeah.
I like it.
simultaneously feel like heavy and like weightless
At the same time.
Yeah.
Any specific rock, like gemstone or like?
No, I'm not a
igneous?
gemstone. Just a rock, like
Average.
a rock that you just found outside wherever you are in the world. That type of rock.
Okay.
I like it.
Preferably not like. Actually, let me add that. I want to be a gray rock, please.
A gray
Oh.
rock.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't like the brown earth we have around here a whole lot.
That's
so,
fair.
Like, yeah.
Heather Gray.
Yeah, so like a gray rock. Like I'll
Okay.
take slate.
All
Yeah,
right,
just
well-
flying through the air.
We also
Okay.
like to end the podcast with what was your win for the week? So we'll go back down the line.
Yeah.
How about that?
This I did premeditate her for. I was like, by the way, they're
Perfect.
gonna ask this question. Start thinking about it now.
What was your win for the week?
Yes.
Kim?
I asked Kyle this, and I'm just gonna roll with it anyways. Not pushing my coworker down the stairs.
Nice.
Oh, good
That's a
job.
good
That's a
win.
great win.
That's
I'll
a really
high
good
you on
win.
that. Yes. I often think about pushing my coworker down the stairs.
Thanks. Appreciate it. As your boss.
Sounds like
me,
HR might get involved.
We need HR.
Well, as head of HR, I think that's an okay thing to do because you've never been pushed down the stairs.
It's a learning experience.
Yeah.
It's a learning experience. It's to cultivate the work environment.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a solid. Okay. What's your win, sir?
My
Dude.
yeah.
Yeah.
My one of the week was definitely just making it through the work week. I actually had to take a day off of work because I was like, my mind is not in it. And then on Saturday, standing true to a promise that I had made, which was to take care of the backyard and get it ready for having a pool party. So my win was just sticking true to making sure that what I said was going to get done, got done.
Awesome.
The grass got mowed, and I have a farmer's stand to prove it.
Hell yeah.
And we're all
Dude,
aware
and it
of
was
that.
so much more than mowing. I like raked up the grass clippings, and yeah, I
Yards are
trimmed the
hard.
trees, and I pulled weeds. So that's my win.
Good job. That's solid. Callista?
Wait, you're skipping yourself.
No, we'll come back to me.
She's gonna be last both rounds. That's
Yeah.
how this works.
Last both rounds. That's how
Yeah.
that works. My win for the week would have to be pushing through the work week. I've been burnt out.
Ooh.
I've been burnt out like a motherfucker. And I just, I'm proud of myself for still pushing through. And lately I haven't been able to cook because that's just how it is. I just don't, my brain, no spoons for cooking. So I've been using Porta Subs as a vehicle to get vegetables into my mouth.
Love
And
that.
I shout out to Porta Subs. So I'm just being lenient about my diet right now. Whatever gets fresh veggies in my system.
Slice
It
fresh
works.
every day.
It
Slice
works.
fresh every day. Okay, Lou.
Shout out to Porta Subs.
Big shout out to Porta Subs. She's the only
Jesus.
reason why I'm eating vegetables right now.
That's great.
Just in June, I feel like they should be like Port of Doms, just like celebrate both sides of it.
Port of Doms. Oh, I love that. We need a shirt that says
Yes.
Port of Doms.
That's a great idea.
Trust me, he'll
Perfect.
get on Custom Ink later and make one.
Yep.
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
so sorry. My phone's going off.
Oh, I know.
Okay, so my win for the week was that Caboose and I have been trying really hard to like set up a like date night on like Saturday nights because I usually am burned out with work and socializing. And we had date night last night.
Yay!
Yeah, we got drunk, played Connect,
Love it.
yes.
and ate a bunch of Indian food. It was great.
That's fantastic.
Sounds amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and then we played like detectives, like CSI detectives, because the lawn furniture was scratched. So we were scrubbing through footage to figure out how the fuck it happened.
I love
Which
that.
meant that when she got home last night, we were like, her foot was on it. And I was like, but they're cloth, they're canvas. I don't think they could have scratched it. And then she
I just
walked in the
imagined you
house.
with like a monocle and like a hat. Like,
Oh, literally. I walked into 2 drunk motherfuckers on the floor staring at my feet, and they were like, "Stay still! Stay still!" I was like,
What did I do? I just got home.
you walked into Holmes and Watson.
yes, I did.
100%.
What's the name of the guy, the lead of Scotland Yard, the lead detective at Scotland Yard? That was you. You walked in, you're like, what's going on here?
What's going on here? Yeah, and they were like, "Just stay still." I was like, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
And then so
And then we solved the mystery. It's just that 2 chairs hit each other. And I was like, okay, now we know.
Now we
mystery
know.
done. Feel great.
Done.
But the mystery was terrifying. I was like, has somebody been in our backyard?
I don't blame you for wanting to know, because
Yeah.
I would have been like, what?
Yeah. The moment I know, then I'm like, okay,
We're cool.
perfect. I can handle that.
Yeah, we're Gucci. It's
But
fine.
the second
Yeah.
it's like found, it's like she's on a scent.
Yeah.
Hunt it, you know what
I can't. I
Yeah.
can't stop.
That's fine.
Yeah. All right, perfect. Thank you guys so much. Thank you for anyone who made it this far. We appreciate. Are you gonna keep? That's
Kyle,
terrible.
she literally just told you she hates
Terrible.
farmers.
Look at how bad it is.
so bad.
It's gonna get worse. I
No,
promise.
just take your bloody shirt off, man. Like,
won't.
not now, but like when you're outside.
I had to
Don't
show
do
it
that
off
to
one
the
more
rest of
time.
us. Thank you guys so much. Like, subscribe, whatever the fuck I'm supposed to say with that. And we'll see you guys next week.
Thank
We're
you.
gonna talk about we don't know what. Bye.
Not farmers dance.
Bye.